Cindy, when do you want me to start letting individuals in?
Yeah, that's 2:55. Yeah, that's fine. You can start letting folks in.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. If you can hear me, we'll just wait for at least a couple more minutes and then we can start as a group. So I know it's about 3 p.m. now. We'll wait for at least a couple more minutes before this town hall starts. So it looks like there's still a few more folks trying to enter the room. So we'll allow that to continue to happen. And I'll start in about 1 more minute. All right, friends, I think we can go ahead and start. It's now 3:03. I want to be respectful of people's times. There are also folks that will probably join us in a little bit, and we'll make sure that we are able to utilize this time to go through what is going to happen for today with a particular focus on addressing the call to action that APASA received in relation to addressing the survivor or the sexual assault awareness and how the center can utilize this time to make public apologies, but also utilize this time to come up with a potentially a plan of action in how to better serve the student community as it relates to survivor advocacy. Advocating for the survivors' needs, but also building this community to do some more prevention work. So I'll start out with some quick introductions. Um, my name is Kenny Importante. I use he, him, his pronouns. I serve as the director for the Asian Pacific American Student Affairs. And first, I just also want to thank you for joining today. I know that for some of us, this is potentially a really serious topic for and personal topic for you to participate in. And I want to acknowledge the courage that folks may go through for today to share some of their experiences and participate in this conversation today. At this time, I would like to ask the APASA's professional staff members if they could introduce themselves, and then I'll ask some of the inclusion multicultural engagement staff members to introduce themselves as well. So passing it off to Dustin and then Bernice.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dustin Eddy. I'm currently the interim coordinator for APASA. Joined the staff back in March and have been working to see this town hall through. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and definitely feel free to give us feedback once we get to the Q&A section. Off to you, Bernice.
Thank you, Dustin. Thank you, Kenny. My name is Bernice Rodriguez. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I serve as the administrative assistant on behalf of APASA and NASA. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
And then I would like to ask Jen, and if there are any IME Cultural Resource Center staff members, if you would like to introduce yourselves as well.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jen Hofel-Olsen. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm newly in an interim executive director position with our department, which is inclusion and multicultural engagement. I thank you, Kenny, and the APASA staff for letting me join you today. And I especially uplift and thank the survivors who are speaking out and holding us accountable and investing in us to do better work, which we're deeply committed to do. So thank you, everyone, for being here today.
Not sure if there's any other IME colleagues here, but I would also just like to pass it off to Corinne.
Hi, everyone. My name is Corinne Roberts Hamilton. I use she, her pronouns. And I work as a confidential survivor advocate here at the university. And I just wanted to say, I'm not sure, Kenny, if you want me to go into survivor advocacy right now, or we'll come back to it in a little bit. Yeah.
We'll come back to it.
Okay. All right. I'll leave it at that for now then.
Thank you. I see Rainey. Did I see Rainey in there? Yes. Would you introduce yourself? I know you didn't plan this, but we might as well introduce you as well, along with if Dr. Chan is around, in case folks wanted to touch base with any of the staff members as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rainey Vijay Vera. I'm the Assistant Director of Advising and Student Services in the College of Science. And my role with APASA is I'm their advising fellow. So I hold office hours once a week to welcome students and staff to come chat with me. So that's my role here today. I'm here to support what's going on and to let students and staff members know that I'm also a resource.
Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Chan. Most of you probably know me. I have been your faculty fellows for many years. While there is no official faculty fellow program this year, but I am here to help you and advise and do whatever that I can help you with. So please feel free to contact me if you wanted to talk to me. We can do Zoom sessions and talk over the phone, whatever. Okay? All right.
And then if I could get, I'm just gonna go back to the next slide here. If I could get Erin, I wanna acknowledge perhaps some of the CAPS liaisons in this room.
Hi all, I'm Dr. Erin Barnes. I'm the Assistant Director of CAPS. Just here to let you know that CAPS is available to every student. Right now, all you have to do to see us at CAPS is go to our website and click a button and you'll see a counselor. So that's Monday through Friday, 9 to 3 o'clock. So it's fairly easy to get connected. I'll be hanging out here for the entire duration of this program. If anyone needs to take an aside to talk to me, I'll be available. I think we'll just set up a separate like breakout room or something like that.
In addition to CAPS liaison, Erin Barnes, Ishani Dale, our APASA CAPS liaison for this academic year, will most likely be able to join us at a later time, maybe around 4 o'clock. And Lori Mills, unfortunately, is unable to make it today, but she is a CAPS liaison as well with the Women and Gender Resource Center, who does the survivor support group, which I will also share a little bit about later. I know we have some community council members here, but I'll just kind of skip through that piece, and wanted to share again, if folks need to do a breakout room, some of the staff members that are co-hosts of this space can put people into a breakout room and request to either meet with any of the folks that have introduced themselves so far. But also acknowledging that Corinne will be has somewhere to be at 3:30, and so I'll make sure that before she leaves, we get a chance to share a little bit about the survivor advocates as well. And so for today, I just wanted to share, this is the town hall agenda. What I hope to do for the next 15 minutes is to go over some of the information that we think might be helpful as we address the lack of APASA support, and I want to take ownership for that, along with covering some of the university policies and addressing the 7 list of demands as put forth by alums and current students. And then we hope that for the remainder of the 2 hours is to really listen to what the community is suggesting, so that we can move forward with putting together a plan of action in supporting our APASA student community. And before we start, I just wanted to kind of remind folks to be as respectful as we can be and provide some sort of community guidelines and expectations. Know that, and what I would like to have happen here is to remind everyone that all participants in this Zoom town hall are members of this community, and that we are working together to listen to each of the participants' perspectives, supporting the successful outcomes of the demands laid out as part of the APASA call to action. We also ask participants and facilitators to be respectful of the space and practice active listening, along with reminding everyone that engage as you have capacity. We support the overall mental health of all the participants in this room. Feel free to notify facilitators if, again, you would like to process with a CAPS liaison. Additionally, if you feel triggered, we will understand if you're unable to continue to participate in this town hall. Again, realizing that or recognizing that topics we will discuss today may be difficult for some, but also needed to move forward. We ask that this group to be patient, have an open mind, and try to avoid interrupting others. We are all in a learning environment to fully understand students' experiences and hope to create, again, a plan to better support one another. So just for the procedures for questions, we realize that some students or alums may feel like they don't want to ask the question and be outed. And so if others want to put forth any thoughts or questions related to this conversation, there will be a link. And so Dustin, if you have that link, or Jen, if you could share that with everyone so that folks can start submitting any questions, and that will be, you have the ability to make those questions and thoughts as anonymous if that's something that you wish to have happen. Additionally, if you have questions where you don't feel like it needs to be discussed in the town hall meeting, you also have that ability to check a box maybe it's a question that needs to be directly to an APASA staff. And if you would like for us to return that, to reply back to you via email, feel free to leave your information where we can reach back to you, so we can fully give that information to the group or to the individual. And then as always, if you do have feedback where you don't mind sharing, feel free to use the chat box as well. So how did we get here? Why is APASA doing this now? I think at this point, I just want to make sure that for the students that have been affected over the last 2 years because of the lack of perhaps information we failed to share or the lack of support that we have failed to provide to survivors, I want to just acknowledge that it was definitely something that, you know, feedback that has been given to me, especially over the last few months as a way to address the idea that we need to do better. And I want to, again, take this time to publicly recognize the mistake that we have made in the Student Leadership Awards. I know some of the student has been wanting me to address that as well. Student Leadership Awards that took place a couple of years ago, where as a result of our own decisions affected some of the survivors because of honoring a particular individual that apparently had multiple information where it's not deserving of that outstanding undergrad award. At this point, I want to offer again my sincerest apologies, and I know that I've had some conversations with some of the individuals affected by this, and I understand that we need to do better in regards to what would that look like for the future Student Leadership Awards, so that we do not honor individuals that are not deserving of this. In addition to that, I also again want to recognize that perhaps we as an APASA staff was not helpful, and so we want to make sure that we provide opportunities for people to share their own experiences, and again to better support survivors, particularly in this room. And so I'm gonna go back to the Leadership Award slides, but because Corinne has to take off, I wanted to just go ahead. Corinne, if you could just share, I'm gonna look for the slide about the survivor advocacy, but if you could just share a little bit about what is survivor advocacy program, because it is part of the demand number 5 or 6, 5 or 4.
Thanks, Kenny. Yeah, I'm glad I was able to join for a little bit to talk a little bit about the Survivor Advocacy Program. I think we're a really vital resource to students at the University of Arizona, and our program actually exists because of students. So first and foremost, I want to say that we are a free and confidential resource. So that means any student impacted by any form of sexual or gender-based violence can come and talk to us, and that information is not shared anywhere else on campus. And so if, for example, someone in the Dean of Students office wants to know if you came and met with us, that's not information that we release. So we say, that's not a question that we can answer. So not only the details of what's shared in our meetings, but also the mere fact that you meet with us is confidential, and we take that confidentiality very seriously. The other thing is that we're free and you can refer yourself. So if you see on this slide, Kenny has our website right there, survivoradvocacy.arizona.edu. And if you go to that website, there's a referral button and you can refer yourself. And one of us, there are 3 of us on our team, will reach out to you within 24 hours, the only exception being a weekend. And then our main goal is centered around supporting students and what they want to do moving forward in any process. That includes deciding to do nothing, because that's also a choice. We do not encourage or discourage students from any one process. That could be, you know, reporting to the police, that could be reporting to the school. We want to make sure that students are doing what they want and what they need. There's only one person that can answer that question, and that would be the student, right? That would be you, the student. But our main goal is to support students through their healing. And there are lots of components that can be a part of a survivor's journey towards healing. But that's our ultimate goal. And there are a number of supports that we can help students figure out. That could be you know, getting a no contact order on campus. That could be academic accommodations, because we know that when people are impacted emotionally and physically, their academics oftentimes are also impacted. So we want to make sure that students have access to a variety of services, and that the barriers to those services are either reduced or removed completely. That would be ideal. So that's where we come in as advocates. We want to make sure students get what they need, and we're going to advocate to make sure it happens. So I can go ahead and put my contact info in the chat. I do have a meeting I need to get to pretty soon, but if you want to contact me directly, I encourage that. I would love to hear from you. We can set up a time to chat, or you can go ahead and refer yourself through the website, and one of us will get back to you within that 24 hours. Lastly, I just want everyone to know that we're working with Kenny through and APASA staff through a number of the demands, and Survivor Advocacy is committed to providing the support that we know students need. And so I just want to say thank you for having me here. And I'll go ahead and put my info in the chat right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Corinne. And again, feel free to contact her. She's one of the 3 staff members with the Survivor Advocacy Program that provides confidential meetings and coaching through when one is impacted by gender-based violence. So I want to just go back to the slide about what is the plan of action related to moving forward about leadership awards to avoid a huge mistake that the center has done. Is the selection committee moving forward to review the nominations will now include current student staff, student leaders and alums that have been involved with the APA Student Council, and then including faculty members, campus partners, and all APASA staff. Another idea that was suggested by some of the folks I've had in conversation with this week also included this idea that maybe student organizations may be able to share how they conduct a tracking system related to misconduct. And I think later on we'll kind of share a little bit more about that with 1 or 2 student organizations affiliated with the center that are really looking into updating their own constitution, where it allows for exec board members to really have some checks and balances, and how student leaders are seen as role models, but also being able to address potential misconducts and behaviors that are inappropriate and not aligned with the university and the student organization's values. If folks have questions about the Leadership Awards selection committee to make it better, or thoughts around it, please do let us know. Feel free to share that as well. Again, if folks do need to have a one-on-one conversation with CAPS, Aaron Barnes is also included, is in this room, and may be able to you can be put to, in a breakout room as well. And so the third piece that I wanted to touch base with this group is to understand university policies and what are the rights and responsibilities of a student. We've had some conversations about what is APASA doing related to student orgs, what are we allowed to do with student orgs, what does ASUA say about student orgs, and so just note that student organizations, from my understanding, is that if they want to be recognized as a ASUA student organizations, they would work with ASUA to get advice on their constitutions, to get advice on potential funding that where student orgs have access to, along with access to space in the student union. Typically, ASUA works with over 600 student organizations, so registered organizations, and so it's really up to the student orgs if they want to be participating as a recognized ASUA. Here at the center, it's not common, it's not always the case where all of the affiliates of the APASA has been recognized or currently as recognized by ASUA. And it is the responsible of the organizations to make that to opt in or not. One of the questions we've also received as a result of SWUVSA over the last 2 weeks, SWUVSA stands for Southwest Union VSA. Why was APASA not doing anything related to SWUVSA's incident with U of A's Vietnamese Student Association. And so that's the part where we want to make sure that everyone understands VSA is a group of student organizations that we work primarily with because they are part of this campus community. However, SWUVSA, Southwest Union VSA, is a community organization that has nothing to do with APASA. And so as far as what we can do is to provide advice to the student organization affiliated with the center, not necessarily able to make any decisions or recommendations on what SWUVSA will be doing. Again, we're here to empower and support student organizations and work directly with student leaders to provide advice regarding any of the logistics, planning a program, should these requests, there's a little typo there, should these requests come through with the center. How do we handle compliance? Again, the compliance really is anybody can report if they have been a witness or experienced any potential violation of the student code. That really does go through Dean of Students. If it is a gender-based related kind of violence, it may go through the Title IX office, but know that these reports and information shared with those offices, it stays within those particular offices. And so even if when a student discloses information to the center, unfortunately, the center may not be able to do much regarding removing a student from the center or removing a student from an event. However, there are some options that we want to make sure students do understand as an option for potentially no contact order. And I'll share more about that in a little bit as well. And so when a student experiences any or is impacted by gender-based violence or sexual assault or harassment, stalking, there are resources that we provide to students. And I understand in the past, perhaps we haven't done a great job making sure that survivors are aware of these particular instances and support system for the survivors. And so I would like to kindly go through it so that folks are aware of these particular resources. Earlier, you heard from survivor advocacy, and Erin, if you are okay to kind of share a little bit about CAPS and OASIS. I think I have a slide there for that one too. I welcome you to share a little bit about what is OASIS as a part of CAPS and what happens in CAPS as well.
So with OASIS, so it basically works the same way as if you were to come to CAPS. All you need to know is that you just need to reach out and schedule a triage appointment with CAPS. And then you'll get to meet with a counselor that is specially trained to work with folks that have experienced a trauma, such as a sexual assault. The initial appointments are free of charge. And then ongoing from there, there is a fee for the session, but there are funds available throughout campus if that's not something that you can afford. The counselors that are in this program are really well trained to work with folks with trauma, and they have the same hours as the rest of CAPS. So that's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 o'clock.
If there are any questions about CAPS and OASIS, please enter that in the chat as well, and we can clarify some of those information. One of the things that's really important and feedback that has been shared multiple times is that APASA has failed to provide information about the CAPS referral form where the cultural resource centers basically cover the co-payment, the cost for a student to attend or to see a CAPS counselor. And so that's also part of the demands. And so we want to make sure that everyone understands that anybody who utilize or have connections with any cultural resource center, a professional staff or a grad assistant should be able to provide a CAPS referral form where we can advocate for our department to pay for the co-payment cost. It was also suggested that students were not aware that they could renew how many sessions they can meet up with CAPS. And so if a student needs additional session, we will work with them and renew those CAPS referral.
I'll also add that there's the Let's Talk drop-in consultation that Dr. Lori Mills is doing in the WGRC. And all you need to do to join that is Tuesdays from 2 to 4 and Thursdays 11 to 1. You can reach out to any of the folks here and they can get you connected with Kim Dominguez, who can help you get connected with these drop-in consultations. They're free of charge.
So in addition to survivor advocacy and CAPS and OASIS, APASA, for this academic year, we do have our mental health advocate that is contracted with APASA, that has a private practice here in Tucson. Her name is Dr. Yuodia Chua. If you follow APASA on Insta or Facebook, you will also see her office hours. What we would like to make sure people do know is that for recent alums and current students, if you want to have access to a mental health advocate, feel free to contact Dr. Yuodia Chua. I believe I have her information in a little bit as well. If not, Dustin or Bernice, if you can find Dr. Yuodia Chua's email, she can be contacted directly to set up an appointment and the center will pay for that. Additionally, if one feels uncomfortable with APASA, there is also Women and Gender Resource Center. There is a survivor support group with CAPS, and that information is this flyer right here. and I believe meets for this fall semester from 3 p.m. to 4:30. Anybody can join anytime, and that's the meeting ID information. The center plans to include this in our newsletter, along with making sure that this flyer and this information is also shared via our social media, Insta and Facebook. In addition to other offices or department, folks can also utilize Campus Health Service, Women's Health, along with the Title IX office, and then the no contact order. The no contact order, I just want to add, and if other colleagues have more information about no contact order, if I'm not bringing this enough justice, please, I welcome my colleagues to also share. No contact order doesn't necessarily mean a fact finding, so or another student has been found responsible for any student code of violation. No contact order means that if you as a student no longer wants to have any interaction with another current student, that can easily be arranged, I believe, under the Dean of Students office. So we don't have to prove that, you know, somebody did something wrong to you. I believe that moving forward, we're gonna need to make sure that as a community, people do know about no contact order to avoid, again, some mishap that may have happened, not just at the leadership awards from previous years, but also at our events hosted by the center. And so if folks have questions about no contact order, I would be happy to discuss that with you, or other staff members in the cultural centers can also share that, along with CAPS, who is present in this moment. Just another resource for folks related to off-campus resources. There's the Southern Arizona Against Sexual Assault and Emerge. They're very prominent here in Tucson as another resource beyond the University of Arizona. So you're probably wondering, what is APASA doing now? In this next slide, there are 7 demands, again, listed as a letter sent to the center last Wednesday. And so I'll kind of go through them one by one. The first one is making a public statement on policies and procedures regarding sexual assault, and making sure that we're able to also address that as a whole group. And so the center acknowledges our actions in response to supporting survivors feeling unsafe in the space, and trauma not recognized in the ways students preferred previously. APASA staff, we're committed to supporting students and that experience gender-based violence and improve sexual assault awareness and prevention within our community. Know that, again, there's already conversations in partnering up with survivor advocacy, CAPS, again, to prepare workshops addressing those concerns and providing those resources. Again, if we did not follow through with survivors, I want to offer again my sincerest apologies, because perhaps that was not necessarily provided in the past, where perhaps a student may have disclosed with us and we failed to follow through with the support. And so if you have ideas, I welcome that as well. The second piece is to ensure process and policies, particularly regarding mandatory reporting and confidentiality by APASA staff, are as public, transparent, and accessible to view by all community members. We are in the process of making sure that we include in our website all of the information I am sharing right now to allow the student an understanding of the processes and the support system that exists here on campus and off campus. I hope that APASA is able to launch this web page during the month of October. So we have about 3-4 weeks to make sure that this is done, and that is an accountability that I offer to the staff as well. Demand number 3 is to implement a mandatory education training program on sexual assault, harassment, and domestic violence for all APASA staff and student leaders affiliated with the center. Topics include, but are not limited to, importance of consent, abuse of power, in intimate relationships, victim blaming, and boundaries. Again, we are making sure it starts with APASA staff and student staff. Corinne's office, the survivor advocacy, will be going into internal work and educational workshop trainings within our staff first, I believe next week. And then moving forward is to apply some of the educational workshops in the student council, particularly because this is what some of the students have suggested, that if you are going to be a student leader in your organization, perhaps this is really needed to make sure that we're able to have educational workshops with the role models that serves in the APASA community. Demand number 4 is, again, making sure that people know about confidential advocates, ideally the survivor advocacy program. Right now, there are 2, I believe, coordinators. Jen, remind me again, the Corinne's and Brenda's position. And there is a program director, a 3rd confidential advocate within that program.
Yes. Their titles are advocates. There are 2 survivor advocates and then 1 who manages, and she also has a caseload as well. So 3 full-time staff.
And I want to make sure that these services are free to students. This is the part where I think it's really important, if folks are utilizing CAPS, that we, the center staff, also acknowledge that we can cover the cost when one meets with any clinician at CAPS related to counseling sessions, triage, and Erin will look into including OASIS as an option in the box, that CAPS referral form that we use. So there will be some updates there. So professional staff and grad assistants are aware that that's something that we plan on supporting. Earlier, I said something related to mental health advocate, Dr. Euodia Chua, a local clinician. Her email is right there as well. Demand number 6, this is something that I would like to open it up for the student leaders on this campus that are in this call. Maybe we can continue to have more conversations about modifying the APASA affiliate manual to include policies and procedures that really help prevent and respond to sexual assault awareness, and urging the student organizations to implement these similar policies within their respective constitutions. I've been having conversations with at least one of the student orgs on campus to really think through what would making an amendment on their constitution look like when it comes to addressing misconduct in general, so that there is a way for, again, accountability. And I believe that APASA's role here is to continue to advise, to partner with the student, and empower this community to really include this piece as part of not just the Constitution, but part of working with the center for the next academic, for this academic year. And then to host a public recorded town hall. We do have this recorded today. If any students or community members wants to use this, to request the recording, please let an APASA staff member know. Commitment to moving forward. How can we work together to make the change? So at this point, just making sure that I do understand this, and these certain bullet points right here is something that we want to communicate with the community, that we are willing to work with our community to make sure that we're able to address and support the needs of our students. So some things to put out there, and we can have this conversation in a bit. What are some of the things that our community can do to support survivors, especially if we have failed in the past? I want to open that up as well from you know, some of the community members and students on this campus. And so at this point, I want to end this presentation and really suggest and open it up for some Q&A so that I can also share more, like maybe specific, if that's something that the students and community members wants to hear more about as it relates to the plan of action moving forward. And so maybe if we can drop the link again one more time in the chat box, and we will try to answer them as best as we can. Jen Hoffel-Olsen right now is also reviewing the form. And
we have our first question, actually. I just put it in the chat, and it's from Janice, and the question is, will APASA publicly advertise resources available to students, staff, community in the APASA newsletter that goes out over the listserv, thinking of survivor advocacy, no contact order, etc., on a weekly basis? Also, because APASA staff are mandatory reporters to Title IX, example, if a student reports about a report or an incident, will you advise the student beforehand about anonymous reporting resources available before moving forward? So are we going to practice a interrupt to inform method, which absolutely, that is our best, that's always the goal, but please, Kenny.
Yes, so so that question, thank you for the question. Certainly, we will make sure moving forward, once we're able to gather as many of these information, if the community wants us to continue to include this in a weekly newsletter, which we do send out typically on Tuesdays, if not Wednesdays, I would be happy to include that information related to survivor advocacy, utilizing CAPS liaison, mental health advocates, specific information about no contact order. Again, putting all of this also in a website this month is something we plan to do. And then specifically about as a mandatory reporter, yes, it is the practice and as part of training that all university staff members that are mandatory reporters, so this excludes CAPS, counselors and survivor advocates, to make sure that a student understands, and we will try to interrupt first before we find any more information to make sure that we provide an opportunity for a student to understand what they're about to share with the center staff members may be utilized as reporting to the Title IX office. If I did not answer that particular question, please let us know as well.
Did you talk about interrupting to inform? Sorry, I was looking at other questions.
Do you want me to? I can take that a little bit.
Go ahead.
So kind of looking at it historically, it looks like, whereas this may have been common practice amongst APASA staff to interrupt and inform, it may not be aware to students that that is our practice. So the idea that Kenny is referring to, the idea of updates to our website, updates to some of our communications that are more static in the sense that they don't change very often, we're going to also include how an APASA staff member will approach, an incident that involves sexual assault, gendered violence, or a confession of such, and that ensure that students know, so they don't even have to go to a staff member, that at the moment they tell us something along the lines, or if they're worried about it, all they can do is simply ask, be like, what are resources? Or APASA staff are encouraged to interrupt, provide not only the rationale that we're mandatory reporters, but also the resources before continuing the conversation. We're just going to make sure that it's going to be publicly known on our webpage, not only how students should respond to these incidents, but also how APASA staff and our policies behind it are.
Anyone else wanted to share additional information about that, Jen?
I think that it's covered. I just want to make sure folks know what we're talking about when we say interrupt to inform, and that's that when like I've always been a mandated reporter. I was the director for the LGBTQ Resource Center for the last 10 years. So when a student comes and you get the sense like they're about to share something deeply that could be something that would require a report, you always sensitively just say, hey, just so you know, I'm a mandated reporter. If you don't want a report, I 100% support that and want to follow your lead. Don't tell me. Here's the people who you can confidentially tell, and then give contact info for survivor advocacy, the OASIS program, or other folks who have the licensure to hold that confidentiality. And if folks have further questions about that, please feel free to submit another form, put the questions directly in chat, or unmute yourself, and we can definitely get a dialogue going as well. The next question that came through the form was, is APASA implementing a report policy for our peers if we are concerned about them for CAPS, mental health reasons, either related to gender-based violence or otherwise?
So I hope I'm understanding this correctly. So if a student has concerns about their friends or peers and they share that with an APASA staff, hey, Kenny, can you check in with so-and-so? In my own practices at APASA, when a staff or a student shares with me that, I should check in with so-and-so, I typically will ask to have a conversation with the student in concern. And when that happens, we are also able to make appropriate referrals to certain offices on campus. So for instance, one thing that may have happened is that, like, if a student needs specific accommodations because of something traumatic that had happened in their lives, then we'll work with the Dean of Students office to make sure that the student is supported. And if it is related to mental health, we then should be, and apparently this was not the case for some individuals in our community, we should then be able to talk a little bit more about, CAPS referral form as a way to make sure that students who may want to meet up with the CAPS counselor is also covered financially from the center's or the Cultural Resource Center's budget. That's kind of what we typically will do. And again, if we have failed to do what I have just shared, I recognize that perhaps it could be a training issue that the center is really looking into as part of our internal work that needs to happen to make sure that we don't miss those opportunities.
Can I add something really quick? So just so everyone knows, you can call, so faculty, staff, students can call CAPS to consult. So we have the friend-to-friend program, we have Parents Matter, faculty can call in as well, and we have trained counselors that are responding to those questions. So if you have a concern about a friend, or you hear something and you're not sure what to do, and you're not sure who to turn to, we can be a great resource for that. And we're going to be able to give you some advice about steps that you can take, and we'll help you sort of collect the resources in a way that maybe feels safe and away from the place where, you know, maybe you feel intimidated talking to, you know, one of the APASA staff, worried about backlash or something like that. So we can be a resource in those situations as well.
You put in the chat, Erin, how students could access that. And I wanted to also just mention again the DOS public care form that anybody, including staff, but if you're concerned about a peer or a friend and want to put that on the radar, there's a public care form through the Dean of Students website that's like, if you're concerned about a student's well-being, that alerts professionals, not within the cultural centers, but within our Dean of Students office, to check in on folks. So APASA staff can submit those reports for students, but if you don't want to go through a staff person, but you want your friend to be checked in on, that's another avenue for support as well, if that's helpful. I've got our next question. Did you want to add anything else to that question, or did anybody in the forum want to ask a follow-up? We want to make sure that folks feel like your questions are being answered. So please jump in and tell us if you need more information or we missed the mark in some way. The next question then is, are these resources inclusive of members of the LGBTQ+ community? Which I can answer if you'd like. Kenny, you let me know.
Please go ahead, Jen, and maybe for CAPS, we could hear directly from CAPS what that looks like as far as LGBTQ+ inclusive community within CAPS.
So in terms of survivor advocacy, Title IX, I mean, all of those services are deeply LGBTQ+ inclusive and have done a lot of work throughout a lot of years to ensure that that's the case. If that's not an experience someone has, we need to know that, and we would take that feedback very seriously and adjust our practices accordingly. But from what I'm aware of, they are absolutely inclusive of and already are serving members of our LGBTQ+ community.
Yeah, that's a important value here at CAPS, and if it's especially if it's related to whatever happened, it's definitely something you can talk about with our counselors without fearing like there's going to be some sort of repercussion for sharing that information. The nice thing too is that it's confidential, and so, you know, maybe if this is something that's hard to talk about related to identity as well, that's something that we can welcome and invite you to tell us as well.
And again, I just want to reiterate what Jen has suggested, that if you are not receiving the care, the support based on a particular experience, interaction with a certain staff member, we do welcome the feedback with CAPS, with survivor advocacy, with APASA, and again, there are other cultural resource center staff members that would also be open to working with individuals. And so those are, again, pieces where we would like to make sure students feel comfortable approaching any staff members where they feel like they can get the support that they need. And if the center, if APASA is not that, we would hope that we're able to find alternative options where maybe we could work with you to identify other staff members moving forward.
Our next question is, if you're ready for it, how is APASA planning on mediating inter-club issues of misconduct since no other governing body exists? For example, if one club includes sexual assault policies in their constitution and one does not, and then one person from each club has an issue, what would happen? That's a good question.
Thank you for that feedback and a scenario. That's definitely something that, you know, Dustin and myself, along with Harley Quinn, have been in conversations with over the last few weeks. In addition to that, working with two of the student organizations as recently as this week in thinking about inclusive practices and specifically addressing specific policies that allow the organizations to question and do some internal inquiries that would be included in the Constitution, whether or not a person is responsible for a potential misconduct. Those are pieces that the center right now is really looking into. At this point, I want to be able to support, you know, the demand number 6 in a way that gives justice to you know, our community, to survivors, but also the, you know, the student leaders who have fought to make sure that this is included in the constitutions of the affiliated student organizations with the center. I think it'll take some time to get some buy-in. You know, there are some of the student leaders I've talked to this week really have put it in a way that it's definitely something that our community and APASA would like to support this idea of putting together amendments in the Constitution that really allows for questioning of whether or not a student is a fit for that student leadership position. And so in future affiliate or partnership conversations with student orgs when they want to use the center in the future, when we're back on campus and whatever that partnership may look like, we really want to hit and make this a priority for all student organizations to make sure that this is part of the conversations and expectations with the center and the student orgs that plans to partner with the center. Dustin, do you have other thoughts, comments about it?
Yeah, I really want to. I know you expressed the impeachment, but I want to kind of address the questions asking kind of like the inter-club issues. And I noticed the word used like governing body. I just want to let everyone know that, like, unfortunately, APASA, we're not a governing or a conduct unit. We can't determine an outcome. We can't force student organizations to do something. And as much as it would definitely make benefit for our community, it definitely has to come from our community to help with resolving these types of issues or using the pathways that already exist when it comes to conduct, involving the dean of students, ASUA, for example. But unfortunately with APASA, we can't just simply say one club versus another club, you have to do, or you have to include something in your constitution. Our main focus, in order for us to really support students, is to provide support resources. So what we've discussed mainly through here is how to support a club in developing these procedures, how to support a club when they are going through conflict. So definitely in the mediation aspect. But unfortunately, we don't have much in the terms of power to be a governing body. Now, that doesn't mean that one doesn't exist. We do have the APA Student Council, which is just something facilitated by APASA, and it definitely could be a space that student leaders can turn into something in which we govern as a community, but that requires the buy-in that Kenny has referred to. And also, APASA would support any initiative amongst student organizations to create a governing body amongst themselves. in the sense of establishing guidelines for student organizations, what it means to maybe be a partner, right, with APASA, with the backing of student organizations. But unfortunately, there's just no way we could just simply say outright, you have to have X, Y, Z in the Constitution in order to be part of APASA, because that's already established through relationships such as ASUA and the Dean of Students. Our main focus, once again, is to provide the support services, which is why we're addressing here today, is that there has been a call out that we have not been doing so. So a lot of our main mission is to make sure that the support goes out there, and that we're also helping student organizations create creative ways of addressing this as a community, rather than just having APASA going around hunting or like looking for areas to impede upon the organizations themselves.
And if I can just jump in briefly, I just wanted to acknowledge the larger context of the university, which I know you're naming, Dustin and Kenny, like the Dean of Students really is, and the Student Code of Conduct is the like, we don't tolerate sexual assault on this campus. That's explicit in all of our policies. And so regardless of a club's constitution, no one can condone sexual assault. That's supposed to be built into how we work as a campus. And clearly that's not happening right now and is an area of growth, but the policies that support that work are in place. And so like outside of the student clubs. So I just wanted to kind of situate it in the larger context where on our campus, like that's absolutely not acceptable. Any additional thoughts about that, or I can shift to our next question?
And while Jen is shifting through the next question, I would like to announce that Dr. Ishani Deo, the APASA CAPS counselor liaison for this academic year, has also entered the room. I want to put out there that Ishani also holds office hours on Wednesdays from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Ishani, if you could put your email address perhaps in the chat so that people do have it as well. The office, I want to clarify because perhaps we may not be clear about what office hours looks like with CAPS counselors or mental health advocates. When they do office hours in a Zoom meeting on a weekly basis, or when we used to be open and our CAPS counselor or our mental health advocates were doing sessions at the center, it really is more of utilized as a coaching session. And so it's highly recommended that if you would like to have a deeper conversation about what you're going through, I would then recommend you skip out on her office hours and just go ahead and make an appointment with CAPS or with our mental health advocate to really provide one, a very confidential conversation so that people don't see you, right? But also a formal opportunity where relationships are established between the clinician and the student.
So I know, thank you, Jen, for putting in question 5. So we have a question here. How does APASA plan to do these checks on student leaders in the community? I'm not sure. Kenny, did you mention checks of any kind?
Not yet.
Yeah, so forgive me if I missed the meeting, and definitely feel free to chime in if you want to, or submit some clarification. But when I hear the word checks, I kind of want to refer to the answer I gave last time. Unfortunately, we're not a conduct mechanism, and we're not compliance. So if student leaders do not take a training with APASA, that would unfortunately have to be on the student organization in order to ensure that they do so. APASA only has very limited functions when it comes to, we can't ban a student organization just because it didn't take a training with APASA. Because that also goes against our mission to serve students. We also spend a lot of time serving new student organizations. So to add additional barriers like that, it's hard for me to say, but it's very hard for us just to simply go around checking student leaders if they've done a certain training with us. That's actually why that we're having this town hall, because we'd actually like some of your input as student organization leaders and how we as a community can maybe enforce this cultural change, but also with the idea of embedding within your own organizations policies that could require them to take, or student leaders to take trainings with APASA. We would love to, of course, implement, yearly retreats. And as like we said, we're going to plan multiple trainings throughout the year regarding the topics of gendered violence and sexual assault awareness, along with consent, working with our partners across campus. But we really do need your help in getting the people in those spaces, and also in helping us enlist people and making sure that we're not only the staff are educated, but everyone who comes into APASA is educated.
I also just want to add and take this opportunity that, your peers are the ones that really took the time and really think through what would that look like to support your own peers as well, especially those who have been affected by sexual assault or are impacted by gender-based violence, right? And so I would hope that as peers, to peers, that you respect what the student leaders have been wanting to make sure that we do not continue to perpetuate this idea that within certain organizations or within our community that we continue to harm others within the community. So I do want to encourage and challenge the group who, if they're not necessarily believing that these certain amendments should be taking place in the Constitution, then let's have those conversations. And how can we have that open conversation where it allows for a process set up in a Constitution for potential inquiries. Because at this point, some of the students, perhaps your friends or peers, have really been impacted negatively as part of their U of A experience. And so we would hope that for APASA staff, we are able to address those where we're preventing certain incidents to happen to our community members. Other thoughts, questions, or things you'd like to share via chat or out loud? Jen, how are we doing with the questions? Do we have more?
We have one more in the queue. I just wanted to give it a minute to see if anybody would feel comfortable asking a question. I know Zoom is a challenging format and that's not always comfortable for folks, but if anybody felt called to ask a question verbally, we definitely welcome that as well. And we also welcome questions through the chat, because this time has to be meaningful to the people in the room. That's the whole intention. I kind of interpreted question 5 maybe a little differently. I wondered if it connected to question 2 around like reporting peers where there's concerns about mental health. I kind of interpreted it in that way. And if the person who wrote it feels comfortable clarifying, to let us know which way to speak to it. But I wondered about do we have a plan to check on student leaders in the community around mental health support and survivor support. Whether we know someone's a survivor or not, like everyone deserves mental health checks, and we want to create communities of care because that's what centers are for. We build the fabric of communities that help keep us surviving these super challenging times. So I don't know if you have anything to add, thinking of it in that angle.
Thank you, Jen. And perhaps this is something that a previous conversation with one or two students earlier as well. I want to acknowledge the idea that perhaps the center failed to check in with the student who has disclosed. And so perhaps that's the question as well. And so in listening to the feedback of from an earlier meeting, the center failed to check in with that particular student after they have disclosed. And so therefore, one of the things, again, internal work that the center staff really needs to think through is what would checking in with the student after they have shared information with us, what would that look like in the future? And so it sounded to me from an earlier conversation that we should be sending, potentially checking in via email. And if we didn't get any responses back right away, that it's okay. And maybe we could do it again in the future. So part of me that I want to share with this group is that one of the reasons why perhaps I did not check in if I knew something was happening is because I didn't want to re-traumatize a person who's been impacted by trauma. It could be a Title IX related kind of incident. It could also be other situations. And so because especially Title IX related incidents is very traumatizing, part of my practices that I have been trained to is to not bother you know, a student that may have been impacted by trauma. But it sounds to me the feedback that was shared earlier is, you know, Kenny should be checking in with individuals who are dealing with their own particular situation. And so I want to share that that's something that the center will make sure that the staff is aware of, to have some follow-up or follow-through with what that looks like when a center or when a student discloses information to us.
Our next question, if that's okay, is, and this is the last question in the queue, just for folks, if you want to submit more questions, there's not a bunch in line. This is the last one I have at the moment. And I know we'd love to hear your feedback as well. So we'll make sure we have time for that. Question 6 is, oftentimes survivors will share their experiences with trusted individuals, and particularly on college campuses, trusted staff who are also seen as part of their social community. Knowing that APASA staff must follow mandatory report requirements, how is APASA ensuring that those who wish to share of their experience have people they can speak with who are not bound by mandatory reporting and are trusted members of the APASA community? That's a good question. And it connects to the larger need for APITA identified counselors on campus.
Yeah. Okay. So as to kind of speak towards this, I'll speak a little bit personally. Is like this, I do find this very hard as a university staff. That everything that I do has to go through a report process whenever it reaches subjects such as this. To give some context to students or anyone who is unaware of the policies of the university, but every university staff member, unless specifically designated, such as CAPS or survivor advocacy, is expected to by the university to be mandatory reporters. And this even includes our student staff. A lot of this derives from some federal regulations put down by the national government. So it is, we do reach that point where it's very difficult for us to find trusted people who are mandatory reporters. Ways that we not so much get around things, but provide options. And luckily that they do exist is, of course, like I mentioned, CAPS and survivor advocacy, petitioning groups such as CAPS to have a PETA identified individuals, which has thankfully led us to our CAPS liaison, Shani, right? But also seeking community resources, such as Dr. Yodia Chua, right? And so to reach out to that. I know that these aren't, people that you may see every day or someone that you've actually interacted with before when things like this happen. But we act as, Kenny and myself act as a source. We hope that we can transfer the trust that you might have in an APASA staff member or a APASA community member onto those that we also trust. So this includes all the colleagues that I just mentioned. And to touch on what Jen has mentioned, we are always asking for additional resources for our PETA identified individuals in all the pursuits. And it only helps us when students add their voice. And, we would love to work together and figure out ways of not only maybe putting PETA identified people within CAPS, but other parts of the university where PETA identified students feel underserved.
I think if Jen or Erin can also speak to the potential plan for an APETA, aside from Mishani, maybe the plan for CAPS related to potentially additional CAPS counselors.
Do you want me to take that one, Jen?
I mean, you are the associate director of CAPS, but if you'd like me to, I can.
I just wanted to make sure. So,
Yeah.
This is a priority for CAPS. I think all of us, when we imagine counseling, it's nice to know that the person we're talking to can understand our experiences. And so it can be challenging to talk to someone when that's a barrier, even if that counselor is really competent in talking to you about the various identities you might hold. It might still be a barrier because you're unsure and you have to figure that out. And so through a lot of student advocacy, and I want to really highlight this because when students advocate for their needs, the university is a lot more apt to listen than when I'm advocating and asking for these things. And so as a result of some of that advocacy, there has been some movement in opening up some positions for CAPS to provide embedded counselors in the cultural centers, including APASA. And we're going to be searching for candidates for each cultural center. They'll be having about 2.5 days or more within the center, and then some of the time in CAPS. And really the idea is to sort of continue to increase the diversity and representation within CAPS so that we can be welcoming to all communities on campus. And so that's a really exciting development. The timeline is to be determined. We're figuring that out. This is very brand new news, and I think this is the first time I've talked about it publicly. So more to come on that, but we're really excited, and CAPS is partnering with Jen and the rest of the cultural centers in that process.
I can piggyback on that just to say, one, to the APASA staff who are like, how did I not know about this? Because it's so brand new, nobody knows about it yet. So now you know, and it'll come out more publicly as it's like real, but the funding has been committed, which is an exciting win for all of our communities because we know representation matters and we know how important it is for folks to be able to access support from folks who have a shared identity. And so that's been a long goal of the cultural and resource centers, and feels like a huge win because we know how deep of a need it is. And I think that's what that's part of the answer to that question.
I also just want to add to the question that Jen posted here, number 6. How do we make sure that there's also other community members, perhaps an APIDA identifying member that can also serve as, again, role model mentors beyond mandatory um, reporter staff members like an APASA staff. I want to put out there for this group that the center has been in conversation with at least 2 APIDA identifying women in this call. I'm pretty sure they're both present, where we may want to ask them to potentially lead an APIDA women's circle, where there's an opportunity for women in the community, within our community, to serve as support system on a regular basis. For some of you who may know, NASA, our Native American Student Affairs, have, you know, men's prayer circle, women's prayer circle. Other cultural centers do have healing support systems and whatnot. And so APASA, I understand. Again, this is one of the fails that I have not been able to put forth. And I want to recognize that. And do you think that that's something, if you're hearing this, would you be, as a student, would you be interested in attending either a weekly or a bi-weekly or a monthly kind of gathering where APIDA identifying women are able to gather together and support one another? And it doesn't have to be like an educational workshop again. It could be just, you know, a way for folks to go through, realizing that for Dustin and myself as cis men in the community, I understand we're not going to be able to fully relate to some of the experiences of APIDA women students on campus. And so this may be one way to make sure that students are also supported in a way throughout the year. So any thoughts about that? So we have a couple of comments on the chat box. Anyone else want to speak to that? So before Jen reads number 7, the center would like to move forward and propose this idea and include this as a priority for the center as part of fall programming. And we will take, you know, we'll try it if that's okay with this group, and find ways where we can, again, utilize maybe community members, a recent alum perhaps, where they may be able to facilitate. And right now, I am looking into making sure that there's financial compensation for the potential facilitators of this idea.
And I put this question in because it relates to this idea that, is there any efforts to help alumni that experienced grief before these reforms were implemented? And so if that group would be a space that alumni could access, that potentially could connect, or maybe there's other ideas about how we support our former students and our alumni who are also healing.
Yes. As far as supporting alums, I mentioned earlier, if an alum currently not a registered student on campus, who may not have access to CAPS, I know this is a public forum, but I'll just say it anyways. APASA would be happy to work with Dr. Euodia Chua, our mental health advocate, if that's something you would like to pursue or continue to have meetings with a mental health advocate. Feel free to notify Dr. Chua that you are an APASA student. And again, the center will work with the clinician to cover the cost of that meeting. Realizing that, you know, the center has also impacted some of the alums in this particular situation. At the very least, I would like to offer that is also a resource for alums. And then in addition to that, when I get a chance, or when Dustin and I and Harley Quinn, our grad assistant, gets a chance to discuss next week what would the women's support group might look like, it's likely then maybe that's something that could be an open invitation for alums to participate as a support group as well.
CAPS can also offer comprehensive referral support. So we're more than happy to help an alum that's looking for resources, both low cost and insurance based. And yeah, that's something that you could turn to us for. All you'd have to do is call us and we'd connect you with someone that could support you.
Other thoughts or things you would like to bring up that may not have been cleared from the center's plan of action in addressing any of the 7 list of demands set forth by students?
Are people satisfied with APASA's response to the demands?
To mention that the question form also includes a feedback section. So if you would like to, if you don't want to verbalize it here, you're totally welcome to use that question form to also put in feedback to some of the things that we have asked. And then if you would like, you could also privately send messages to either myself or Kenny if you have any additional ideas. Thank you, Carolyn, for calling that out to us. If I could make maybe one comment, I would like to definitely have all the students here. If you are interested in helping APASA anyway, and you looked at these demands, you look at the responses of APASA, and you're like, maybe this is something that I could help towards, or give my input towards, or be someone that helps in creating these spaces, definitely feel free to reach out to Kenny and I, or even Harley Quinn and other APASA professional staff, or even send in your suggestions, because we definitely want to do these things together. We want to do these things in response to what you students want. We also want you to be there with us as we do it. It's only better if we do it together, in my opinion.
So we'll allow for a few more minutes just in case there are additional thoughts and questions related to this town hall. we do have at least 30 minutes left in this town hall, and really would like to open it up for any other suggestions or thoughts and concerns.
And also, if folks have additional ideas that aren't on the table, but that you think would be good for future support and programming, that can be shared here or through the feedback form as well. I'll put that in the chat again.
Other thoughts regarding what I may have missed or not clarified with this group? By the way, the Survivor Advocacy Program has sent the center staff members is it a one-pager? A one-pager that has all the information and options when a survivor is dealing with a particular situation. And so that's definitely something that we will include in the newsletter, and we will include via social media, and perhaps when we're all back on campus, that there will definitely be materials that can be printed to make sure that these resources are, again, as publicly as available as possible to the rest of the campus community.
And just for clarity, Kenny, in regards to that last question, our staff, y'all will make sure that those printed materials are in the lounge, in the study room, on every office, like that. It will really have a kind of presence that will hopefully help raise a collective consciousness around the services and resources available. Okay.
Including in the APASA lounge, in the hallway, in room 210, the back study space shared between APASA and NASA, and in our office suite. We'll make sure that many flyers and resources are as widely available to our campus community.
We did have another question come through about if someone was interested. Oh, I think Harley Quinn just shared the that flyer. Folks want to look at it. That link is in the chat. Thanks. There was another question. If someone was interested in the creation of a governing body for the student organization similar to the board of directors, BOD, how might that be implemented with the help of APASA?
Yeah, I welcome any feedback and ideas from the student organizations. If that is something that you all want to take over, I do welcome that. I will share for the students who are aware of APA Student Council, or back then, for some of the alums, it may have been called Club Council. APA or the version of APA Student Council or Club Council is in other institutions, it's actually led by student leaders like yourselves. And then the center staff that typically will partner with those student leaders, like a board of directors, to put together a plan of action in supporting, the rest of the student organizations affiliated within the community. And so if that is something that is of an interest of student leaders currently and recent alums, let's talk some more about that, because the APA Student Council doesn't necessarily need to be led by APASA staff. We can partner with the student leaders where that's something that could be implemented, where that's led again by the student leaders themselves. Please contact maybe Dustin or I to make sure that if that's something you would like to do, and open up for those discussions where we can enter into an opportunity of student leaders taking ownership of how we may move forward.
Jen, I'm taking a look at the next question.
Thank you.
I guess I'll answer it because it calls me out specifically. If anyone, whoever wrote the question, feel free, if you want to or not, help me clarify what I mentioned. But what I'm assuming here, so I'll read it out correctly. Dustin, you mentioned during VSA Town Hall, your biggest issue is with the director. If I heard that correctly, how do you and APASA staff plan to regain the trust of the students and alumni, since from rumors, the directors is the same? Definitely feel free, if you can, please clarify the question. But I think what you're referring to, what I mentioned during the town hall, is that the biggest blunder that has led us to the situation we are today was something that occurred in a past leadership awards, right? And some miscommunication that occurred amongst the staff. And then since the director is, the head of APASA, it does end up on their responsibility to ensure that they address these types of issues. What I will say is that if you weren't here in the beginning of the meeting, Kenny did apologize a lot. He did recognize the situations that occur. He did indicate some of the failings that APASA has created. And that, of course, is what led us up to here. I wouldn't say that the director is the reason why we're here. Or, if that is the case, please feel free to let us know so that we can adjust our practices accordingly if it's not already done so through the demands. But please take a look at our plan of action, how we're responding to demands, and see if this will help, especially with the alumni, and understanding how we're trying to make up for the failings that occurred in the past. Yeah, definitely feel free to chime in with clarification or message me privately if you want me to maybe address that question again.
And again, I take full responsibility of what had happened in that particular leadership awards, and wanted to make sure that processes have been updated and changed so that, again, we do not make the same mistakes in honoring a student that should not be honored by the center, if that's the part that folks are asking about.
I also see part of the question is about how you plan to regain trust,
right,
where trust is broken. Do you want to speak to that a little more directly?
Yeah, so as far as regaining the trust, it will take some time. I understand that. At this point, I want to make sure that I am listening and hearing the feedback that is shared by alums and current students and the staff as well. I do welcome the feedback and making sure that we're able to make the decisions based on what we know in that moment so that we can continue to support students The center's values is, is to make sure that we support the students, educate students, and empower them to make sure that they are successful individuals in their academic endeavors. And if the center has failed to do that, to a select few or to a majority of the students who have gone through the center, I sincerely, again, want to make sure that I apologize for the lack of the connection and for the lack of making the decisions that best support students. At this point, regaining the trust will take some time, and I want to be able to honor the wishes of this particular demand and show you that the center is able to move forward with the guidance of what has been shared through the APASA call to action sent to us last week.
And I'll just add in, if folks aren't satisfied with what's happening in APASA and you can't get your needs met in APASA and you need other folks to engage with, that's part of my new job. If you don't feel like I'm accessible to you, you can go to the new Associate Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion. There's a lot of folks that you can take your concerns to if you don't feel satisfied with the plan as it stands. I hope that folks can give Kenny and Dustin and the APASA staff direct feedback to keep cultivating the center, your center. This is your center. It deserves to be what you want it to be, and all of its transparency and messiness and mistakes and growth and healing. And that's why we're here. And the fact that there's so many people here is a testament to the investment in this community. So, but if you can't find the support you need here, then you can take it other places. So I'll put my contact info in the chat. So if I could be a personal resource and help connect to other campus resources as well. We do have a couple more questions that have come in. So I'll share. The next one is, would it be possible for APASA to work with ASUA regarding mandating sexual assault prevention training for student organizations?
So first off, we don't want to miss one of the questions earlier as well regarding where will the town hall recording be available for those who missed it. Dustin, can you comment on that in a little bit, and I'll comment on the question that was just read out loud by Jen. Again, the question was working with ASUA regarding mandating sexual assault prevention training for student organizations. I think at this point is that the center will definitely commit to sexual assault prevention workshops and trainings for the student organizations who wishes to partner with the center. I definitely will take this particular question to see what would that look like if ASUA was also the leaders of making sure, what if ASUA are the leaders of mandating sexual assault prevention. As students, by the way, you also have the voice with the Associated Students at University of Arizona. And so maybe we can chat some more to see what would that look like and work with within ASUA, the Diversity Student Council. And Jen, I don't know if it still exists, but it does. Has existed in the last 2-3 years that I've been here. Yeah. And if the student wants that to happen, ASUA can say a lot.
Yeah, and I will take that to ASUA because of that question. So that you asked it here means students want it, which means I will definitely advocate with our ASUA colleagues to make that happen. I think part of the unfortunate aspect is that we don't currently have the online training we're supposed to have, but Kenny's done a lot of outreach to Title IX to understand the trainings that are available, and we do understand that they're very close to releasing a new online training through, it's called EverFi, and it includes all kinds of information around discrimination, harassment, and includes information about sexual assault. And I think once that tool is available, then we have the infrastructure to to require it, and ASUA would be the body. So thank you for that question. I will take up that advocacy with them and commit to that, and alongside Kenny, because we work closely, of course. Yeah, and then about the kind of where will the town hall recording be available after this forum question, I wanted to make sure. Did you already answer that? I'm sorry if you did.
Not yet. Yeah. So we're still working on our website. Do keep in mind that Kenny and I are not experts in website design, but we are going to be making web pages. Our intent at the moment, because we're not sure if the technology will allow it or not, but we'll definitely work with our colleagues over at SASG to do so, is to put the video online on our website in some shape or format. Whether it's a private YouTube video that can be accessed on our website, whether it's Vimeo or something. I'm already, just making sure that this recording doesn't get corrupt and everything. But yes, it will be posted publicly on the APASA website because this is something directly related to our community. We just got to figure out how to do so.
We have some additional follow-up questions that are kind of next steps related. One, will there be a second town hall session, or where can folks find updates on the progress of the list of demands? And then also, will all the questions asked be made public for transparency? Sorry, I should have taken out that other part. So will they be made public for transparency?
Yes, so it sounds earlier in my conversation with select individuals, perhaps there's multiple town halls that needs to happen, and I welcome that feedback and make sure that we're able to address that as well. I'll get back to some of the individuals I have been in conversation with to see what the second town hall might look like. The second town hall might look more like a conversation on the Constitution, addressing amendments to the Constitution, so we get some more student buy-ins in addressing, Demand 6. However, if there are other topics that you feel we should also continue to discuss or elaborate on in future town halls, I do welcome that. And will make sure that I listen to, the students and provide the and guide us to the next second town hall. If folks do have ideas of when that should happen, or within the next month, within the next 2 months, or before the end of fall semester, please provide that and share that with me either now or later. That's totally fine. And then as far as the second question there, will all the questions asked be made publicly for transparency? Dustin and I will, and Bernice, we will go through this together and make sure that we're able to address it in a way that is, again, for public for public consumption, where we are able to include it in a web page that we're trying to include under APASA's webpage, addressing the list of demands with these particular questions asked out loud. Is there any other thoughts or questions you think we should discuss out loud? Follow-up questions?
There's a suggestion to tag the video link for the town hall on the Instagram bio, so students can check there for updates.
You got it. And we'll put that in the Insta bio.
If you know what formats are better, let us know, or what YouTube or what service. Feel free to send us that information as well.
Other thoughts or questions that you would like to put out there?
There's no other questions at this time through the form.
Just to close today, I want to acknowledge and thank the students and the community members that took the time to participate in this town hall and really listen to how the center is trying to move forward in addressing these particular demands. I again want to acknowledge the work that the folks have put together, the list of demands. I know it's not easy to put that together and ask an APASA staff to really take that into consideration. Again, I want to offer my apologies for the harm that I have created in our community, the lack of response and support that students experience, especially in the last couple of years. And I hope that I take this opportunity as a growth where I and APASA staff can share the progress that are being made related to the 7 demands that has been put forth. I also just want to acknowledge and say my thanks and appreciation to the staff members and the community members that are here today to listen in and hope that for the students in the room can see that there are, aside from Dustin and I, there are other staff members that you're able to talk to. And it's okay if, you know, we're unable to make those connections with you. And if you feel like you have a better connection with another staff beyond the center, please, I welcome that you should and be able to utilize them as a resource on campus.
And Kenny, there's one more that came in that asked if it would be possible for a second town hall to happen before the end of fall semester. Is that within the timeline that you're working with? I know you've thought this out a lot, so.
Yeah, I believe that we can put together a second town hall before fall break. And if that's is an interest of majority of the student leaders on campus, we will definitely work with the group who sent the call to action letter and identify ways where a second town hall will be beneficial to the community moving forward in supporting what students want to see happen on behalf of the center and within the APASA community. All right, folks. I want to thank you for your willingness to listen. If I have missed an opportunity to explain further details, please do not hesitate to contact. That feedback that feedback form will also continue to be live for the next few days. If you have specific follow-ups, Dustin and I will sift through those and really take, again, you know, your feedback, your questions into consideration. And if you would like for us to answer them publicly, we will put that again on the website, a web page that we're trying to put together for the next couple of weeks. All right. Again, feel free to contact me if you need anything. And I wish everyone a safe rest of the weekend as you start your weekend. And I will follow up again with individuals that would like to continue and have further conversation about the list of demands sent in addressing supporting survivors, supporting student organizations, along with making sure that resources, particularly CAPS, survivor advocates, and all the information related to Title IX and reporting are available, as widely available to all the individuals at the U of A community. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi, Kenny. This is
Hi,
Iris.
hi, Iris.
This is super off topic. I know we talked this morning already. I was just wondering, how can I contact you if I wanted to schedule an appointment with you? Do I just email you? Okay,
Yes,
great.
Iris.
Thank you, Kenny.
Yeah.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Iris.
Sorry, I wrote the last person,
Mhm.
just in case they forgot. Jen, yeah, I saw your suggestion. I know I want to, but Jen suggested maybe we should process this together. But I was thinking maybe we should do this in a separate call because Bernice and I are going to try to figure out the recording.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Kenny, does everyone here know Kenny's personal meeting ID?
You text me it? I don't think I have it, but.
Oh yeah, Jen, you probably don't know. I'll text it to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, is this it?
Chat too if you need it. Yeah.
I got it, Dustin. So fast. Okay, I'll see you in a minute.
Good.
Okay, I'll log into that one.
Yeah.
Does that work for you, Harley Quinn? Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay,
I'll see
great.
you guys there.
Alrighty.
So I'm leaving.
Yes, go away, Kenny. Alrighty. All right, Bernice. When you hover over the record button, what does it say?
It just says recording, and there's a pause sign and a stop sign.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you definitely have control.
Okay.
Let's just do the stop.